You sent 40 applications. You heard back from 2. Both said, we went with another candidate. If you're a developer right now, that probably doesn't feel like fiction. A Stanford study found a 13% employment decline for young workers in AI-exposed roles. In 2025, Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong fired engineers who didn't adopt AI coding tools, setting an example for all tech companies. I'm Tom from Mentor Cruise. Today, I'm sitting down with developers who've lived through this shift. We're going to talk about what's actually happening, who's still getting hired, and what to do if you're one of the people stuck in the middle. What developers are actually feeling right now. It's tough out there in the job market right now. And the thing I'm hearing most from those looking for work is that they're just not hearing back from anyone. Rejection's never fun, but silence can be way worse. Loads of people, especially junior and mid-career developers, are putting time into applications and just getting ghosted. Someone I know sent out nearly 40 applications in 2 weeks. What the f? They asked me to send them an email to test if their email was broken because all they got back in that time was 2 automated rejections. And there's data to back this up. A Harvard study looked at 62 million resumes across nearly 300,000 firms and found that when companies started adopting generative AI in 2023, junior hiring dropped sharply, while senior hiring actually increased. So if you're earlier in your career and it feels like the opportunities just dried up, they kind of did. It's not in your head. So what's actually driving this? And is AI really the main reason? I put that question to our guest. Ingrid Zhao, senior software engineer at Apple, says the pressure isn't just AI, it's the market structure shifting dramatically. Honestly, what I've observed over the past 2 to 3 years is less about AI and more about the market structure shifting dramatically. Hiring has become extremely selective. Mid-level engineers are competing for junior roles, companies have near zero training budgets and want perfect fit hires only. It's less AI is replacing you and more entry and mobility have become really tough. So yeah, there's real pressure, but it's coming from multiple directions at once. What AI is actually replacing and what it isn't. So let's talk about what AI is actually good at right now. To be honest, it's good at the stuff no one wanted to do in the first place. Boilerplate code, basic debugging, kind of stuff that fills your day but doesn't really get you going. But that work was also how most developers got their foot in the door. Unglamorous job of learning the code base and building up context over time. And that layer is now shrinking. The Burning Glass Institute found that entry-level software dev postings dropped from 43% of all software roles in 2018 to just 28% by 2024. The bottom rungs of a ladder haven't completely gone, but there are fewer of them every year. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You'd think experienced developers will be killing it with these tools, right? But a recent study from research institute Meta found that AI tools actually slowed down experienced developers working in code bases they already knew well. Not by a huge amount, but enough to measure. So the picture isn't quite as simple as AI makes everyone faster. It took away the floor, the repetitive work that used to keep junior devs busy, but also added overhead for people who are already established. I asked our guest specifically, what kind of developer is actually safe right now? Ingrid Zhao from Apple suggests, this is the uncomfortable part. People who are already in a role. If you're employed, you have the advantage of proving impact within an existing team, which is much easier than getting that initial hire. For new people and people job searching is rough because the market is pretty unforgiving right now. That said, here's what I tell people. A lot of what determines whether you land and succeed is actually outside of your control. It comes down to luck. Does your past experience happen to match your team very well? Did you know someone at the team? Your manager? Does your manager advocate for you? And timing. But there are a few things you can control. First, tailor your resume heavily to match the specific team you're targeting. Read the job posting, understand what they actually need, and make sure your experience speaks directly to that. Second, of course, you should prep well and build real skills. But honestly, the delta between a well-prepped candidate and a less prepped one matters way less than market timing. Who you know and whether your resume makes a team think, oh, this person gets what we need, which is both a downer and kind of freeing because it means you don't have to stress optimize every leak code problem. Dan Ford, former principal SD at AWS with over 15 years experience, has a surprising take on it.
First off, I don't think anyone is really not at risk. The tech field has always been pretty volatile, and I think people kind of forgot this. If you're working in tech and you're employed with a comfortable salary, you should be saving and investing a big chunk of that every month and preparing for long stretches of time where you may not have an income. I also think that some industries, some types of companies, and some areas within companies may be more at risk than others. There's a lot of business models that simply don't work in a non-zero interest rate world. If you're in a pure cost center role, you may be more at risk than if you were attached to a revenue generating business unit. I think generalist roles are more desirable nowadays. Back to 10, 15 years ago when the idea of DevOps came about and became popularized. From one lens, you can view that shift as a positive one, where developers got more insight and more ownership into how their code was deployed and run in production. It's also possible to look at that kind of cynically, where companies basically got to lay off all their support and operation roles and foist more responsibility onto developers without an increase in pay. I think both ways of looking at it can be true, but for myself, I know that I'm a more valuable employee and therefore harder to replace if I have the skill set to do both. That's another thing that can reduce your risk.
Dennis K. Bijo, with 8 years of developer experience, says that developers who aren't at risk are already integrating AI into their daily workflow. They're not just coding, they're orchestrating. They know how to prompt, iterate, and collaborate with AI tools to move faster and tackle harder problems. The developers still getting hired, and what they have in common. So if the entry-level work is shrinking and the tools aren't automatically making experience depths faster, who actually is getting hired right now? First, developers who build with AI, not just alongside it. Not the pure vibe coding bros. People who've made AI part of how they think about problems. It helps them prototype faster and explore approaches they wouldn't have tried manually. Basically, treating it like a collaborator that needs a lot of babysitting, but occasionally has moments of brilliance. Second, developers with domain knowledge that AI can't fudge. If you understand healthcare data compliance or embedded systems or security architecture, that context is yours. An AI tool can generate code, but it can't sit in a room and explain to a compliance officer why the data pipeline is safe. Third, and this one's underrated, developers who can own an outcome and not just close a ticket. The people getting hired go beyond just shipping features. They're the ones who figured out what to build and why, and the demand is actually there for the right roles. AI and ML job postings grew over 13% quarter over quarter in 2025, and 70% of companies say their biggest problem isn't a lack of demand, it's just finding people who are qualified. Sometimes you've got to take a bigger risk to meet that demand. One of my mentees has a technical background but was tired of working for a SaaS business in the manufacturing industry. Instead of applying elsewhere, he started his own business, building AI solutions for industries that have been slow to adopt it. He already knew how these industries work, so he paired that with AI skills and positioned himself as someone who gets both worlds. It's not the path for everyone, but it's a good example of seeing an opportunity and adapting to fill the gap. Quick thing you can do right now: open your LinkedIn profile and look at your skills section. Is there anything AI adjacent in there? If it's blank or it still just reads JavaScript, React Node, that's 5 minutes of work but changes how recruiters filter for you. Our guest had a strong take on pivoting, and it wasn't what I expected. Fatima Taj, who's a senior software engineer at Yelp, says, I tell them to focus on 2 things over the next 30 days. First, return to the fundamentals. Make sure you're not losing your ability to reason through problems independently. Keep questioning the output AI gives you and don't let convenience weaken your technical judgment. Second, invest in your soft skills. In the age of AI, these skills are becoming even more important. Your ability to communicate clearly, work with stakeholders, get buy-in, write strong technical documentation, and collaborate effectively across teams will set you apart. To some extent, AI is leveling the playing field on execution. That means a differentiator is increasingly how well you think, communicate, and lead. That's where developers can really stand out. Now, here's what Dan Ford suggests doing in the next 30 days.
So I actually have 2 pieces of advice for people here. If you're feeling the pressure, take a look at the social media content you're consuming. You may be setting yourself up to feel a lot more anxiety than you really need to be. You probably need a LinkedIn account, but you don't need to scroll content there. It's all AI slop these days. I think if you just made that one change, you'd feel a lot better and nothing material would change. Second, if you've been resisting using AI tools, start trying to use them in small ways. And it's not because you'll be left behind. I hate that. The reason, though, is because it will give you more credibility and position you as someone who understands their advantages and their limitations. When I pushed back on my leadership for thinking that AI could do something amazing, I wasn't taken very seriously. Now, when I raise my hand and I go, yeah, I know we have AI, but this thing you want to build is still going to take 3 months, leadership takes me a lot more seriously because I have that hands-on knowledge and experience, and I have specific examples that I can point to where I can say, yeah, it did a great job on this. It needed a lot of hand-holding, and I honestly had to rein it in on this task. So if you're not doing it, don't feel like you're being left behind, because that's absolutely not true, but it will position you better in this job market to have some hands-on experience with it.
What to actually do next. So what do you actually do with all of this? Depends on where you are right now, but here are 3 options. 1, if you're early career, stop competing on volume. Sending 50 applications a week to the same roles as everyone else is not a strategy, it's a lottery ticket. Instead, try building a project with AI that shows you can take a problem and deliver a result. That's worth way more than a CV with no proof, and to be honest, loads of junior devs are already doing this right now. 2, if you're mid-level, think about the one domain you know better than any AI tool could fake. It could be a specific industry, business knowledge, or a system you know inside out. Whatever it is, lead with that, because right now, context is the thing that's hardest to automate. And thirdly, if you're thinking about pivoting entirely, AI engineering and ML engineering roles are genuinely open. I've made roadmap videos on both of those paths, so I'll link them here if you want the full breakdown. I'll leave the last word to our guest on this one. Krunal Parmar, who's mentored over 100 professionals and worked at Yelp and Booking.com, points to hiring pockets most people scroll past. Couple of areas I'd point to: internal tools and developer experience. Companies are investing heavily in making their own engineers more productive. If you can build tools that save 100 engineers an hour each week, you're worth a lot. These roles are often buried in jobs boards under platform engineering or developer productivity, and most candidates just scroll right past them, or companies outside the usual suspects. Everyone applies to the same 20 tech companies, but some of the most interesting and well-compensated engineering happens at companies you wouldn't expect. Fintech infrastructure, health tech, logistics, and enterprise SaaS. They've got complex technical problems, smaller applicant pools, and are often more willing to invest in growing mid-level engineers. My advice, look for the problem, not the brand. That's the picture right now. AI is reshaping who gets hired, and it's hitting junior and mid-level developers first. The people getting through it are the ones who stopped waiting for the market to recover and started repositioning. If you're trying to find tech roles with less competition right now, I made a video specifically on that. And if you'd rather go through this with someone who's done it, go to mentorcruise.com and find a mentor who can walk this path with you. Subscribe if you want more of this kind of breakdown featuring experts in the field. See you in the next one.